Welcome everyone to this webinar, part of the WeCosmo Prof Week. Today we have an interview with Andy Gatesy. Andy is the CEO of Toly Group. Welcome Andy. As I said, you're the CEO of Toly Group. How long have you had this role, and can you explain a bit about Toly and where is the business today?
Yes, of course. Well, Toly was founded by my father. And next year we're going to be celebrating 50 years of operations here in Malta, which are our headquarters as a group. And I took over as chairman and CEO when my father died in 1991. And at that time we were around a €7 million business, but over the last 2 years we've exceeded €100 million in sales as a group. Today we have 4 manufacturing plants across the group. We have the one here in Malta, we have one in southern China and 2 in Korea. We also have a network of partners around the world to be able to serve customers on a global basis. And our sales organizations today spread from California through Europe to Asia, with offices in the USA, in France, in Belgium, in the UK, Malta, Korea, China, and in Hong Kong. So today I'm here in Malta, which is where my home is and from where we run the Toly Group.
We are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. How has this affected you?
Well, the first thing that I changed was I had to stop traveling, which was quite odd because over the last 35 years I've traveled on average 3 times a week to visit customers, to visit sales offices, to visit exhibitions. Malta is a small island here in the Mediterranean, and to be honest, this country has handled the pandemic quite well. Whilst bars, restaurants, non-essential shops were closed, there wasn't a complete lockdown. I think the main issue is that the airport was closed down as well as the passenger seaport. So there's no way to get in and to get out today. And I don't think they've quite figured out how they will handle international travel. But at the end of the day, we're quite lucky because this is not the worst place in the world to get locked down. In around mid-March, I started working from home at the insistence of my family and the executive team. And to be honest, staying at home is not my nature. As a leader, I like to be at the front line with my teams in the offices, with my teams on the shop floor, and with customers and with sales offices around the Toly world. But then I realized that actually I can do this virtually and connect with people online. So my days and weeks, the last 2-3 months have been quite long because people want to feel secure. And you can only do that by talking to them, by giving them the opportunity to ask you questions and obviously allaying their fears. But cutting out the unnecessary traveling, even today sitting in a traffic jam on the way to work, enables you to spend much more time thinking, learning through webinars and trying to figure out what's next, both personally and professionally.
So what about Toly? Has COVID-19 affected the business?
Well, you could say that we were hit early in this crisis with our structure in Asia. We have a factory in China, Toly China, closed for Chinese New Year on Saturday the 18th of January. And then a week later, the virus exploded in Wuhan, and we only opened around 6 or 7 weeks later, and that was only on a shoestring. It took us a few weeks to really start ramping up. Our office in Hong Kong, Toly Asia, was also affected because most of our trading partners were also closed in China over the same period. But also I think with our office in Hong Kong, we started to understand how social distancing is going to work, how it's going to work with people working from home. Our business in Korea wasn't really affected. Yes, there was an outbreak there, but it was more in the south part of the country, it was very well controlled. So our plants continued to run. And I would say it was only around mid-March that we really started being affected in the Western markets after country by country went into lockdown. So we started seeing order entry falling, travel retail stopped, retail stores closed down. And if we look back over April now, we saw order entry levels around 50% for the month versus our budget. In May, it started to improve, and we've actually ended at around 65%. I think we were lucky because we started the year in a strong position. We had a very strong order intake in January and in February. So our sales have not dropped as much as they could have done so far. On the other hand, we're a manufacturing business and our business lags perhaps behind some other businesses. You know, we're not a hotel where the doors were closed and there was zero income. And because of this lag, I think we might see a worsening effect in the next few months, maybe over the summer period, as we start to eat into our order book.
As a business, what measures have you taken to survive the crisis?
Okay, so what have we done? Well, first of all of our offices moved to home working, you know, calls on Zoom, on Microsoft Teams. Then in our plants have carried on working, but obviously we had to make them safe. So today, if you walk into one of our plants, even our offices today, everybody needs to be checked for their body temperature, and we have those controls in place. Social distancing, we closed the canteen, we put plexiglass on our assembly lines, everybody's wearing masks, everybody has hand sanitization. Over the weekends, we've done a deep clean in terms of a plant sanitization, just like a hospital, and we have a pretty strict policy on sickness. Then we started trying to take advantage of the different schemes in the countries we operate. Our objective was to save jobs. So furlough schemes, temporary redundancies, forgivable loans, grants, subsidies. We've really tried to take advantage of those to protect our business. So number 4, what we've done is we've tried to preserve our order book. So we could have carried on running flat out based upon our strong order entry, but we would have just eaten into our order book. And with our customers' plants being shut down, what we decided to do was to spread out our order book and instead work on a 4-day week. So in April, in May, and in June, we've carried on working at 80% 4 days, and we can obviously change that quickly if business levels ramp up. By doing this, we can keep the factory running at a reasonable level right up to the summer shutdown. The other thing we've done is create liquidity. Obviously, cash is king in a crisis, and it's really important to have cash to be able to pay salaries at the end of the month. We've cut out all non-essential services. We've reduced costs, not just in salaries, but we've gone line by line across all of our offices to reduce costs so we can reduce our break-even point or our break-even level as a business. And finally, for me, the most important thing is communication. We have to do regular communication. So every week, every Sunday, I prepare a video which I send out to the whole group where I give a realistic update as to what we're doing across the organization. You know, I give an update of the industry, of our customers, the countries in which we operate, but I always end that with a positive message.
Andy, do you think the industry will suffer long term? In other words, what kind of recovery do you foresee?
Well, at the end of the day, this crisis, all businesses will be affected, and our business and our industry for sure will suffer. But I don't think it's going to be one of the worst hit industries. For me, the worst hit industries are ones that rely upon travel. So tourism, English language schools. I also think the big ticket items are the ones that will suffer. You know, people aren't going to go and run out and buy a car after this crisis, and maybe won't spend so much money on home improvements. I believe that once shops open again, people will still buy beauty products, either out of necessity or instead for indulgence at a lower cost. If we look back over previous recessions, I think the beauty industry has always proven to be quite recession-proof. In fact, in the last crisis, Leonard Lauder coined it the lipstick effect. When the going gets tough, people will go out and buy a lipstick. Maybe this time it'd be slightly different because we're wearing masks. It might not be a lipstick, it might be more a product for the eyes, such as a mascara or an eyeliner. If you look at business levels, I can't predict whether business levels will be the same, whether they will be higher, whether they'll be lower. Will there be a fast recovery? Will there be a slow recovery? You know, people are talking about V-shaped, U-shaped, W-shaped. Even I heard recently the Nike swoosh-shaped recovery. I don't know. What I can tell you is that I'm always positive. I'm always looking forward. So in line with that, we haven't put our business on hold. We haven't given up on our ambition. We continue to play in this industry. We continue to play to win with a stronger resolve and with a fantastic team spirit. And I think the only good news is going back looking at China. China, it was ahead of us in the West. They came out of lockdown much earlier. And we can already see sales of beauty products growing much faster, which I think gives us a lot of hope here in the West.
What has changed over the past few weeks because of the pandemic?
Well, I think it's amazing in just a few weeks how people's lives and people's habits can completely change. Let me give you a few examples. So first of all, virtual meetings, Zoom calls with customers. We use Microsoft Teams internally within the organization, and even these live presentations are now being done online. But with this, we've maintained the rhythm, we've maintained the drumbeat of our business. I also think this crisis has helped us develop a much stronger sense of community. Toly has always been a people company, but in the last few weeks, the sense of community, the family spirit has been really amazing. The way people are sharing, are supporting, are connecting with each other is fantastic. And I'm sure this will make us even stronger and more resilient as a team in the future. If we look at exhibitions, all of them have been cancelled or postponed. So we didn't stick our head in the sand. We've moved instead into virtual reality. We're sharing our innovations by use of videos, animations, directly with our customers. There are obviously new product categories that are starting to become more popular. The first thing was hand sanitization. That's a lot of alcohol in the product, so it dries your hands. So hand care is now hot items. Not to mention new application systems to avoid finger contamination. What's the first thing that the government's told us in this crisis? Don't touch your face with your hands. So this plays directly into our innovation strategy, because today most beauty products, people touch their face with their hands. We're working instead on new application systems, finding ways to apply products directly without having to touch your face with your hands. We're also looking at other concepts like single-use concepts, antimicrobial, antibacterial solutions, ways that we can easily sterilize packaging. And testers in store are going to be a challenge. How can we work on alternatives so that people can try on the products without the issue of contamination? Another area which I think is interesting is that people have started to understand what's really important in the world or in their lives. You could say that somebody put the world on pause and now somebody's pressing the reset button. And I think by doing that, by staying at home, by reflecting, people are understanding what's really important. And I keep saying it's not just money, but it's people, it's a sense of community, and it's building and retaining our soul. The other area is a sense of security. We've just seen the statistics, across European Union, in the United States, with so many people losing their jobs. I think people in companies will be looking much more for a sense of security and a sense of belonging. Sustainability. In the last few weeks, with less cars on the road, with less planes in the air, we've seen a vastly improved levels of pollution across the world. So, whilst being environmentally friendly is still important, I think hygiene will also have a higher priority. What's the first thing we do now when we go into a store? People are saying, please don't bring your used shopping bags in because of hygiene factors. Restaurants here in Malta have opened. The first thing they said is everything has to be disposable. So there's a slight change. But for me, sustainability is much more than just eco-packaging. It's about companies surviving. It's about companies growing, maintaining employment, taking care of employees, of customers and communities in the much broader sense of the word. And finally, let me talk about competition. If you compare Toly to the rest of the industry and our competitors, most of the packaging suppliers today in the West are owned by private equity. They're leveraged to the hilt, and this only works in a growth market. With the drop in sales, how are they going to fare? For sure, they don't have the same long-term strategy that Toly has. Now, I keep being asked, how can a company who's been in business for 50 years go out of business just by stopping their activity for 2 months? And it's obvious, it's because they've extended themselves too far without building sufficient reserves in their balance sheet for them to survive a crisis like this.
You mentioned competitors. What else do you feel that makes Toly and its employees different than the competition?
Well, I always believe that Toly and its employees are different to our competitors in our industry. And I think this probably goes back to our origins. My father was the pioneer behind Toly. He was born in Eastern Europe. He fled his home. He fled his country twice in his youth in search of a better life, including at one stage walking across a minefield. He constantly reinvented himself. He believed in the future, and he had the resilience to survive life's adversities that were thrown at him on many occasions. For him, adversity made him stronger. He learned new skills. He was positive. He was a man of the people. And I think this resilience, this forward-looking approach, are really the backbone behind Toly. So during this crisis, we've all made sacrifices, but we've all been resilient. But we've never lost our ambition and our vision for the future. The other point that perhaps I'd like to make is, as I just said, there are very few privately owned companies in the packaging side of our business. And being privately owned, what drives Toly is different. Toly is not driven by growth. Toly is not driven by money. Growth and money are the result of what we do if we get it right. They're not our goal. For Toly, the key is to retain our soul. If we lose our soul, if we lose our passion, if we lose our family spirit at the expense of growth, then we will have made the biggest mistake in our history. Nothing is more important than retaining our soul.
We're on the brink of coming out of COVID-19. What do you think the major changes will be?
By nature, I'm an optimist. And for me, in the midst of a crisis, there is always opportunity. So a few weeks ago, over Easter, in line with the biblical notion of resurrection, I started thinking about how can Toly resurrect? Or better still, how can we pivot? How can we reflect? And how can we reimagine our business? It's clear that the world after COVID-19 will be a little bit different. There's going to be less international travel. There'll be more virtual meetings and more virtual experiences. When you look at money, cash will continue to die and be replaced more by digital transactions. Online shopping, we've seen that's growing at the expense of traditional retail. Supply chain strategies, I think, will move more towards localization. There are going to be new product categories, which I just talked about. Hygiene maybe being more important in the short term than sustainability. And the fashion industry, the beauty industry, has been going crazy for the last few years. I think this will start to slow down with a focus upon fewer, bigger and better product launches instead of this craziness with all of these multiple seasonal collections. And finally, social distancing. That's not going to disappear, neither at work, nor in homes, nor in our lives. So amongst us within Toly, we started running workshops as understanding these changes. How are we going to react to these new scenarios? And I like the quote that Charles Darwin once said. He said, "It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. Instead, it is the one most adaptable to change." And today, nothing is more true. And that is how Toly has always managed to survive, by constantly adapting and reinventing itself.
And what about the brands? Which do you see succeeding and who do you think will struggle?
I think that's a difficult question, and maybe it's a little bit early, but from my perspective, today the luxury brands that rely a lot upon travel retail are the ones that are suffering. Why? Because their distribution channel has almost disappeared. On the other hand, the brands that are big online are much less effective, as we can see people, if they can't go out to the stores to buy their products, they switch to e-commerce. Then if you have some of these larger groups with really a well-diversified product and brand portfolio operating across the different sectors of the market, they'll have much less of a blow, as some of their wins will be offset by some of their losses.
And what about the different sectors? Makeup, skincare, fragrance?
Well, speaking to customers and looking at the different industry reports, it seems that wellness and skincare have held up best so far, whilst makeup and fragrance are suffering more. I think fragrance is an interesting sector, because whilst people are not going out, they're not wearing so much fragrance. They're not wearing their perfumes or their aftershaves. On the other hand, fragrance is scent memories. It brings you back to the past. It helps give you a sense of belonging. which is why home candles and home fragrance sales have really rocketed during these lockdowns. Makeup, on the other hand, is a very social habit. People generally wear makeup when they go out, when they go to the office, when they go for meetings, when they go out in the evenings for social events. And I think with people stuck at home, there's much less opportunity to wear makeup. But I think things will change fast. As these lockdowns start to relax, we as a human race, we're very social. And we're already seeing examples of people craving to meet up, almost at the expense of social distancing.
And is Toly able to service all these sectors?
Yes, our product diversity today enables us to service the makeup, skincare, fragrance, as well as paper products or paper packaging. But our focus is really upon where we can add value through innovative solutions. And over the past few years, we've also invested heavily in the back-end manufacturing side of our business. Last year, we opened here in Malta a brand new 20,000 square meter plant, really impressive state-of-the-art technology. And also the last couple of years, we've also built 2 new plants in Korea to support these different product sectors.
You said you've been in business for 50 years. How has Toly evolved and changed over this time?
Well, that's an interesting question. When I was growing up and somebody asked my father, what kind of business is Toly? He would answer, we are an engineering company. We build molds and we convert plastics. And when he died and I took over, I said to my team that we need to change our mindset. We now need to become a packaging supplier. More recently, we have evolved again, and we've now become a solutions provider to the beauty industry. But looking forward, change is constant, so we need to change again. And the future is around having a partnership approach with our customers. Today, a new player can come to Toly and be supported from start to finish, from creating a brand image to delivering the finished product. We are today a one-stop shop.
Every crisis directly affects people. What is your approach for managing people in such times?
Well, my approach through this is that we must hope for the best, but plan for the worst. In other words, we must have a strong belief that we'll come out of this successfully in the end. But we must also have the discipline to face the brutal facts that we are seeing today. I think you must also lead from the front with clear communication. You've got to make people feel safe, feel protected, and be optimistic. We mustn't stick our head in the sand and hope that the storm will disappear. For me, or I should say for Toly, life is not about waiting for the storm to pass, but instead it is learning how to dance in the rain.
What makes Toly unique?
Well, what makes Toly unique? We're a privately owned business with a family spirit and a long-term vision. We're customer-centric. We've got a global commercial structure with sales offices around the world. We're technically proficient with global manufacturing capabilities. And today we've developed an agile and innovative business model which is disrupting the traditional packaging suppliers. We also have very strong core values, and I believe we have a very clear vision.
Which are?
Well, our vision is to create a beauty product development platform, connecting ideas with know-how and capabilities. Whilst our core values are quite simply built around people, passion, pride, and creativity.
I know that Toly prides itself upon its innovation capabilities. Can you explain more about this?
Yes. Well, here in Malta, we don't just have our largest manufacturing plant, but we also have our corporate offices with a fully integrated innovation center. And every year, our teams create more than 150 packaging innovations across all categories. Currently, our main focus is around application and dispensing systems, and how can we make it easier for the customer to use and apply beauty products. So I really invite all customers to come and visit us here in Malta once they can travel again, to sit down with our innovation teams, to do a workshop, to brainstorm ideas such that we can fit into their launch schedule and really launch innovative, exciting products. Here at Toly, today we have a 360-degree view of business. We're not just a manufacturing company, But here in these corporate offices, we have makeup artists, we have beauty bloggers, we have graphic designers, we're doing branding for our customers, we have concept designers designing packaging, for the different brands, innovation engineers, all supported by our technical and operations teams. And now with our Beauty Trill division, we're able not just to offer packaging, but we're able to sell and to present and to prepare and to support our customers with ready-to-go filled products which are right on trend. And finally, we have a Toly design studio here in Malta where we offer the services of a design agency, but understanding the technical and manufacturing requirements. So very different from going to another kind of design house.
You've talked about the habits and practices which have changed, but do you think the world will be so different after COVID-19?
Well, for sure, people's habits and practices have changed over the past 2 months. But it'll probably take much more than locking us down in our homes for 2 months to really change the world. I mean, for instance, I think the fundamental human nature will not change, and this drives our behavior. The fundamental rule of capitalism will not change, the simple law of supply and demand. And there's going to be a treatment in the future, and when there is, this crisis will be over. For sure, this crisis has accelerated processes. It's provided space for technology to develop extremely fast. So my message to my teams is we must also move fast. We don't want to get left behind. But we must not stop innovating. We must understand the end consumer who buys beauty products. When will they start buying makeup and beauty products again? What will they be looking for? What are their emotions? And of course, how can we make products that are relevant and easy to buy? We can't change this pandemic. We can't make people fly again, but we can change, we can alter, and we can reimagine our business. It's all within our power. So let's focus on the things that are small enough to change, but big enough to matter.
What is the most important thing that businesses should and can take from this period?
Well, I've learned in the last 35 years that in life, it is not so important what happens to us, but instead the way that we deal with it. Everybody, every company goes through a crisis. I've been through 5 crises in the last 35 years. And I think it's these difficult moments that define our character and our brand. It's precisely in these tough times that we show ourselves for who we are. As I said earlier, I'm always positive. I'm always forward thinking, forward looking. So in line with that, we haven't given up. We haven't put our business on hold, and we're really focused on our future and on our ambition. I don't want to survive this crisis and look back and say we had the opportunity to invent or to reinvent ourselves, but instead we did nothing. We're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. Our future is created by what we do today, not what we do tomorrow. For sure, 2020 will be a year that we'll never forget. But as I said to my teams, also after every storm, a rainbow will appear.
Thank you, Andy, for being with us for this webinar. And those of you who would like more information can email us on info@toly.com.
Thank you very much.